Hi everybody, it's Dominic from Shift MS. We are now 6 or 7 weeks into lockdown, though I frankly have lost count. I am getting good at making bread. Anyhow, what we've got here today with us, David Martin, who's the Chief Executive Officer of one of the really big MS charities in the UK, the MS Trust, has joined us. And could you tell us a bit about yourself, David, and the charity, please?
Of course I can. Morning, Dominic. Morning, everybody else. So I'm David. I'm the CEO of the MS Trust. I've been with the Multiple Sclerosis Trust for 2 years now. The charity's been going for about 27 years. It does 3 things in particular. It started providing information about MS for people living with MS because there wasn't any 27 years ago. It was a case of adios and diagnose and adios. We also provide additional MS nurses into the NHS, and more latterly, we're providing something called Advanced MS Champions for those 40,000 people with advanced MS.
Can you tell us what you think are the major challenges for people with MS due to the COVID-19 pandemic, perhaps even beyond the virus itself, the obvious stuff?
I think for me, from what I'm hearing and seeing, there are 3 key challenges facing people with MS at the moment during this COVID-19 crisis. One is about the lack of information. There seems to be buckets and buckets of information online, on social media, you turn on TV, turn on the radio. We're hearing time and time again from people who are frightened, who are scared, and they want some help understanding what the information should be. So whether it's about their disease-modifying drugs, whether they should be shielding, whether they should not be shielding, so that need for good authoritative information. The second is support from the healthcare professionals. We know that there are neurologists, there are MS nurses who have been redeployed onto the COVID-19 frontline. That means that not all services can provide the support that's wanted and needed. So there's not enough, as much support as has been previously. And then the stark reality, and the third point is, there are 130 people being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis each and every week. MS continues despite COVID, but at the moment we're hearing time and again that people are being diagnosed, they're not being put on disease-modifying drugs. I think that's quite startling, that's quite shocking. It's almost like we've turned the clock back 30 years, and I hope as soon as this COVID is done, that we can get back to a situation of normality.
What really motivated us to give you a call and get you on your position? You guys, the MS Trust, published this amazing document. I'm going to read here. It's called the Minimum Recommended Service Specification, and you did this in late April.
Yeah.
Can you break this down for us, please, in layperson's terms? Because it is not just for medical professionals, as I see, but it's important that we, the patients with MS, know it, our family, our carers. This is an important document. Maybe you should explain a bit about it so people know how to use it.
Yeah, of course, and the document, it's a fantastic document. It's been created by our MS guru, Megan Roberts, who has been in the sector for years and years and years. But let's remember, first and foremost, the MS teams that are existing at the moment, there are less of them. There's reduced staffing across those MS teams. They are trying to do their absolute best for people living with multiple sclerosis. So this document is not a tell. It's not instructing the teams what they should and shouldn't be doing. What we're trying to do is trying to help them. And particularly, there's some of those teams, they're overstretched anyway in normal circumstances. They're going to be even more overstretched now. We've heard of services, there is simply one MS nurse on the end of the phone, there is nobody else. So what we're trying to do is sit things down and think if there's a minimum amount of resources, what should be done, what can be pressed pause on, and what can we forget about till some point down the line. So we're trying to add more clarity. The document is aimed at people who are healthcare professionals at the moment. We're not trying to hold the MS services to account, but we're just trying to help both the professionals themselves and people living with MS so we can ensure that some form of service continues during this crisis and then help them to get back to normal, hopefully in 2020 or 21.
I think that's excellent. It comes back to your point about the fact everyone is so stretched, they're working so hard. There is this degree of confusion. It's just hopefully for people with MS who are confused and worried, it lets them know, should we say, a basic standard of things that, like you said, this can be parked and this is really a today thing.
Absolutely, and there's a challenge. One of the things we've been hearing again and again at the MS Trust is a lot of people are being diagnosed and then not being offered disease-modifying drugs. That pause button is being pressed. So what we're trying to do is it shouldn't depend on where you live. It shouldn't depend on your postcode. You should get a reasonable MS service wherever you live, whether it's the north of Scotland, whether it's the centre of London. We're just trying to make sure that there's fairness and consistency in the system.
And we think it's really important to understand, I can see your face, to understand just how this virus, how the lockdown, everything is affecting charities, which are by nature charities and rely on fundraising, for most of their funds. Can you tell us what's happening, what's not happening?
But what has happened over the last couple of months is there has been a perfect storm for the MS Trust and for charities like us. So most of our fundraising is events and community fundraising. It's those cake sales, it's those marathon running. And most of those events take place in the spring and summer. You've got the coronavirus crisis, there are no events. They've all been cancelled. And our fundraising has simply dried up. Fundraising has gone that way, but while that has happened, demand for some of our services, and particularly our information services, has just spiked absolutely. We've heard time and time again from people who are frightened, they're worried. Some of that is because they're confused. Some of it is because they can't get hold of their MS services or the waiting time is too long. We've got to keep meeting that need. So I've made a personal pledge is we will continue to provide that information and inquiry line through the whole of this COVID-19 crisis until the crisis is done. So we will be here in 2021. We'll still be providing services, but the way we do things might be slightly differently in the future.
How does this huge hit that all the charities are taking, how does this impact people with MS?
Well, I think I can see quite a few changes happening over the next 6 to 12 months, which will have a direct impact on the lives of people living with MS at the moment, both because of what's happening with charities and on the broader sector. So we're hearing time and time again that people are being diagnosed and not being offered disease-modifying drugs. In normal circumstances, we would be campaigning, we might be working with the Shift, with the MS Society, putting pressure on those services, talking to those services to make sure that they can change what they're doing. We have less capacity to be able to do that at the moment. So I think the number of people on newly diagnosed people on disease-modifying drugs will drop, the percentage of that will drop. Monitoring for those people already on disease-modifying drugs is already dipping, and I think that will go down some more over the next 6 to 12 months. And again, it's hard for us as a slightly reduced size of charity to hold those services to account. I think what's going to happen is we already know that the MS services are overstretched. The waiting lists are already too big. If you're postponing the moment when people go on disease-modifying drugs, those waiting lists are going to get even bigger. So it's huge. And as I mentioned, there has been a spike of desire for information. Now, that spike has, the desire has gone down slightly. It's still huge. If I had this number of people wanting information this time last year, it would have been breaking records then. So there will be an increased demand. And it seems to be every time the government changes something, tweaks something, it's making some pretty clear announcements, but then people with MS are worried about the impact on them. So there's an increased desire for information. There's an increased desire for authoritative and clear information. We've got to be there to do that. So it's almost like we've had to reshift what our priorities are and respond to what people living with MS want and need for the period of this crisis.
As you know, we are going to put everything, we're going to put links to this document and everything in the video. So it's, again, thanks very much and have a lovely day.
Thank you, Dominic.
We've tried to mix it up a bit by getting in ahead of another charity, because the points David makes, I think, apply right across the sector. All the charities are trying to do their best. All the charities are suffering massively. All the links are in the bottom of the video. The subscribe to the MS Reporters channel. That's really interesting, because then you just get notified. That document from the MS Trust that we spoke about, the one that lets you and your carers, your family, etc., understand a minimum level of care that you should be shooting for. And really, that's it. We've got a couple more to do, so I'll see you next time. All right, cheerio. Bye-bye.